Space is so absurd that sometimes reality feels more badly written than fiction. Because somewhere out there in the universe, there's a planet where it rains glass sideways, a moon that blasts water into space, a world covered in lava, and enormous clouds of alcohol floating through the void. And the weirdest part isn't imagining those things. It's knowing they're real. Today, you're about to discover 15 space discoveries that sound fake, sound like conspiracy theories, sound like something made up for a movie, but have actually been observed, recorded, and studied by science. And fair warning, after this video, the universe is going to seem a whole lot stranger than you ever imagined. For a long time, humanity looked up at the sky and assumed space was quiet, empty, and predictable. A few bright dots here, a few planets spinning there, and that was it. But the more technology advanced, the more we realized something unsettling. The universe isn't just big, it's deeply weird. And maybe that's the most fascinating part of all. Because every new discovery doesn't just answer old questions, it creates even crazier ones. How can diamond rain exist? How can a star survive its own death? How can a planet be darker than coal? And why are there hidden oceans inside worlds that, from far away, look like frozen blocks with no chance of supporting life? Today, we're diving into the most unbelievable side of the cosmos. Not the pretty, poster-worthy galaxy version, but the strange, almost impossible side that makes you realize reality is way more creative than any sci-fi writer. So get ready, because from here on out, Earth logic stops applying. 1. Diamond rain on Neptune and Uranus. Let's start with one of the most famous and still one of the most absurd discoveries of all. On icy giants like Neptune and Uranus, there may be diamond rain. Yes, diamonds. The explanation is just as surreal as the idea itself. In those atmospheres, huge amounts of carbon are subjected to extreme pressure and temperature. Under the right conditions, that carbon can be compressed into crystal structures. In other words, diamonds. And then those diamonds likely sink through the planet's layers like gemstones falling into an alien ocean. Think about how bizarre that is. Here on Earth, diamonds are luxury items, symbols of wealth, rare and valuable. On other worlds, they may literally fall from the sky. 2. A planet where it rains glass sideways. If diamond rain already sounds unbelievable, wait until you hear about HD 189733b, an exoplanet famous for having one of the most brutal weather systems ever imagined. This planet has winds so violent, so insanely fast, that they reach thousands of miles per hour, and its atmosphere contains silicate particles, the material that makes up glass. The result? A kind of glass rain being hurled sideways through the atmosphere. This isn't just bad weather. It's not a heavy storm. It's basically a blue-colored hellscape, beautiful from a distance, but deadly in every possible way. And the most ironic part is that it actually looks gorgeous. Deep blue, almost inviting. But that blue doesn't mean ocean, peace, or life. It means destruction. It's the universe reminding us that not everything beautiful is safe. 3. The darkest planet ever found. There's a planet called Tauri 2b that reflects less light than coal. It's so dark that it absorbs almost everything it gets. Imagine that, an entire planet so black that it gives almost none of its stars light back. It's like an invisible presence, a cosmic shadow hiding in space. That happens because of its extremely hot atmosphere and a composition that absorbs light instead of reflecting it. So we're not talking about a planet that's dim in some poetic sense. We're talking about a world that is literally darker than almost anything you know. In a universe full of shining stars, this planet looks like a drop of black ink floating in the void. 4. Hidden oceans inside frozen moons. From the outside, moons like Europa and Enceladus look like nothing more than frozen, lifeless spheres. But beneath that icy crust, the story may be completely different. Scientists have found strong evidence of giant subsurface oceans on those worlds. Liquid oceans, protected by thick layers of ice, warmed by gravitational forces and internal activity. And that changes everything. Because when we think of life, we usually think of sunlight, Earth-like climates, and habitable surfaces. But these moons suggest another possibility. Maybe life doesn't need blue skies, continents, or sunrises. Maybe it can emerge in total darkness, beneath miles of ice, inside a hidden ocean that has never seen starlight. There's something almost poetic about that. Worlds that look dead may be hiding water. And maybe something even bigger. 5. Enceladus spits water into space. And since we're talking about Enceladus, one of the most astonishing discoveries was seeing this tiny moon shoot jets of water vapor and particles directly into space, like a planetary geyser. These plumes blast through cracks in the ice and escape the surface, which means the moon's underground ocean isn't just hidden. It's communicating with space. It's literally leaking clues. That's huge for science, because analyzing that material could reveal the chemistry of the ocean without drilling through miles of ice. In other words, Enceladus isn't just keeping a secret. It's letting pieces of it slip out. 6. A giant space cloud of alcohol. Yes, this is real. In interstellar space, astronomers have found enormous clouds containing methyl alcohol, along with other complex organic molecules. It's not booze floating around the cosmos, obviously, but the very idea of a giant cloud full of alcohol compounds is strange enough on its own, and it doesn't stop there. Space also contains chemical ingredients that are part of the foundation of life, organic molecules, carbon-based compounds, and substances that show the universe is anything but chemically sterile. That forces us to face a fascinating possibility. Maybe life didn't begin under conditions as impossibly unlikely as we once thought. Maybe the universe is already full of scattered pieces, just waiting for the right combination. 7. A lava planet. There's an exoplanet known as 55 Cancri A that became famous for likely being a world covered in oceans of lava. Imagine a planet so close to its star that its surface is a molten nightmare. No forests, no seas, no soft clouds, no mountains like ours. Just liquid rock, unimaginable heat, and a landscape that looks like a permanent apocalypse. What's interesting is that worlds like this help scientists better understand the extremes of planetary formation. Because Earth feels stable to us, but out in the universe there are places where the surface itself is at war with heat. 8. Zombie stars. Now here's where it gets really wild. Some stars can explode and not die completely. In certain cases, what looked like a total supernova leaves part of the star behind. It survives, damaged, weakened, altered, but still there, as if it went through its own death and came back different. That's why a lot of people call them zombie stars. The idea of a star partially surviving its own explosion feels like it breaks the rules. We like to think of cosmic events as final, born, lived, died. But the universe doesn't care about simple storylines. Sometimes it leaves living remnants where we expected nothing but ruin. 9. Black holes can sing. Black holes don't produce sound in the vacuum of space the way a speaker would, but astronomical data converted into audible frequencies has revealed something unsettling. The waves generated by interactions around them can be turned into deep, haunting sounds. And when you hear those sound representations, it feels like the universe itself is groaning. Of course, that's a scientific translation of data, not sound traveling normally through space. But the fact that such extreme phenomena can be converted into something our ears can understand creates an almost supernatural feeling, like, for a moment, the cosmos stops being silent and decides to whisper something dark. 10. There's a star so huge it could swallow Jupiter's orbit. When people think about stars, many still picture the sun as something almost too massive to comprehend. And compared to Earth, it absolutely is. But in the universe, the sun is practically modest. There are hypergiants like UY Scuti, A star so enormous that if it replaced our sun, its surface would stretch beyond the orbit of Mars and, by some estimates, out toward the region near Jupiter's orbit. It's hard to even process that. Everything you know in the inner solar system would vanish inside it. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. All of it. A star so huge it makes our entire sense of scale look ridiculous. 11. There are planets with no star, wandering through space. Not every planet belongs to an orderly solar system. Some were thrown out of their orbits by violent gravitational interactions and now drift alone through the galaxy. No sunrise, no sunset, no star to warm their skies. These are called rogue planets. Just the mental image is unsettling. An entire world condemned to cross interstellar space in near-total darkness, maybe with an atmosphere, maybe frozen solid, maybe carrying the scars of the catastrophe that tore it away from home billions of years ago. If there's such a thing as cosmic loneliness, this might be it. 12. Mars once had rivers, lakes, and maybe even beaches. Today, Mars looks like a cold, dry, hostile desert. But the red planet carries scars that tell a very different story. Valleys, deltas, minerals, and geological formations strongly suggest that Mars once had abundant liquid water. Rivers carved its surface. Lakes remained there for long periods. Maybe even oceans existed. In other words, the planet that now looks dead was once, at some point, more Earth-like than we'd like to admit. And that makes Mars feel less like just another barren world and more like a planetary warning. A reminder that worlds change, atmospheres disappear, oceans dry up, and even a place that once had favorable conditions can end up as a graveyard of possibilities. 13. Jupiter has had a giant spot for centuries. Jupiter's Great Red Spot is a storm so enormous that the entire Earth could fit inside it. And even more impressive, it has lasted for centuries. Think about the level of atmospheric violence required to keep a storm alive that long. On Earth, hurricanes are born and die. Storms build and dissipate. On Jupiter, the scale is so monstrous that a single atmospheric disturbance becomes something almost permanent, spinning endlessly like an open wound in the planet's atmosphere. 14. Saturn would float in water. It sounds like a trick question from a middle school science class, but it's real. Saturn is the only planet in the solar system with an average density lower than water. In theory, if there were a cosmic bathtub big enough, Saturn would float. Obviously, that's never going to happen in real life, but the fact itself already sounds made up. How can a giant planet with majestic rings and dozens of moons be light enough to float? That's the beauty of space discoveries. They shatter our intuition over and over again. 15. We may be seeing the past every time we look at space. And maybe this is the most real and, at the same time, the most philosophical discovery of all. When you look up at the sky, you are not seeing things as they are right now. You're seeing them as they were when their light left them. You see the moon, with a tiny delay, the sun as it was minutes ago, distant stars as they were years ago, distant galaxies as they were millions or even billions of years ago. In other words, telescopes are time machines. Every astronomical observation is a conversation with ghosts of light. Maybe that star has already changed. Maybe that galaxy no longer looks exactly the way it appears. Maybe part of the universe we can see is just a memory still traveling toward us. And honestly, that's far stranger than fiction. At the end of the day, what these 15 discoveries show isn't just that the universe is big. They show that it is radically different from anything our brains were built to understand. Here on Earth, we live trapped inside what feels normal. Blue skies, liquid rain, solid rocks, days with a beginning and an end. But out there, reality takes forms that seem like glitches in the system. Glass falls from the sky. Diamonds may rain down. Worlds wander alone through the dark. Oceans hide beneath ice. and the light reaching us may be the memory of something that doesn't even exist anymore. Maybe that's the greatest mystery of space. It was never made to fit inside our logic, and that's exactly why it fascinates us. Because every time science points a telescope into the void answers with something even more absurd than our imagination could have invented. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because there are still so many other truths about the universe that sound fake. And the next ones might be even more unbelievable than these.